Uttar Pradesh will be going into the elections early 2022 with a strong Bharatiya Janata Party that is in power and in all likelihood a divided opposition, with the Samajwadi Party, however, emerging as the main challenger. Will joblessness, COVID mismanagement, absence of development be able to counter the heady lure of religion and mandir? Will the opposition actually be able to mount a strong campaign on issues of concern? Will religiosity continue to hold sway? Answers only the electorate can give, but meanwhile a new factor in the polls has emerged through the farmers. In western Uttar Pradesh, the farmers have been holding large rallies in panchayats questioning the BJP on the 3 farm laws and minimum support price. Will they have an impact? Well, time and the vote will answer all these questions, deciding the future of UP and through this crucial state, perhaps even the future of India.
So welcome everyone. We have with us noted academic, former professor, and still a professor. I think that's a title that never goes, Jawaharlal Nehru University. And she's a recognized political scientist and is known as an authority on Uttar Pradesh. So considering that that's huge state of India is going to the elections very soon, who better than to talk to than Zoya Hassan? Okay, Zoya, so now UP, of course, there is a present, but I just want to touch very briefly on the past. Uttar Pradesh for most years was a bastion of the Congress. And slowly the Congress started slipping, and I think it started getting a little more rapid, perhaps after the emergency. What would you say would be the single biggest factor for the decline of the Congress in UP? I know it's we're asking you to sort of put it all in a nutshell, but just sort of humor a journalist.
Well said. Thank you very much for having me on your program. Yes, UP was certainly a bastion of the Congress for nearly 30 to 40 years, but it suffered a dramatic decline because of its own mistakes. Most notably, I think, the Babri Masjid issue, the mishandling of the Babri Masjid issue, combined with its reluctance to implement reservations for the other backward classes, which by the late 80s, 1990s had become a major issue. So the combination of Mandir and Mandal literally finished the Congress. And secondly, I think the rise of caste-based parties, notably the BSP, which to start with took away the Congress's Dalit base. And then the OBCs anyway were unhappy with the Congress. So they found an alternative in the Samajwadi Party. And then I think besides this, of course, we must also take into account the overall underdevelopment of UP. I mean, Congress, when it was in power at the center and in UP, somehow just took UP for granted and did not really promote the economic development of UP in the way in which it should have been done. So it was a complex set of factors that contributed to its decline, and its decline has been so serious and so significant that it actually in the end affected or if you will, precipitated the decline of the Congress countrywide. And the Congress has not been able to recover in UP, and it doesn't
That's
look...
where it started off. Yeah, but you know, there is a certain kind of comparison that political analysts tend to make, and journalists particularly tend to make, between the BJP and the Congress, considering that you had the Samajwadi and the caste-based parties that came to power, but they maintained a big distance from the Congress by and large, and also from the BJP until more recently. In their politics, in the exercise of their politics, I'm not talking of alliances. So, but the Congress and the BJP, both national parties, both sort of catering to the upper caste more than others, one not pro-Muslim, but at least quiet and supportive of Muslims, the other totally anti-Muslims. So you have had this kind of comparison that is made. Do you think that in UP, necessarily one will replace the other? If one goes down, the other comes in? Or do you feel
No,
that the
I don't
regional
think so.
parties, yeah,
No, it's not either or,
Yeah,
if that is what
exactly.
you are suggesting, that both are national parties. You see, UP now is very important as far as regional parties are concerned. And at the moment, at least in the coming elections in March 2022, the main contest is going to be between the BJP and a state-based party, the Samajwadi Party. It's not between BJP and Congress. But I think I should have added when you were asking me about what explains the decline of the Congress. Certainly, I think the Ram Janambhoomi movement is a major reason. After all the three important Hindu religious sites are located in UP and not in any other state. And I think BJP, with the help of the RSS in particular, I think has been working in UP. It has really penetrated UP's civil and political society and really built up a huge social support. In addition to that, I think BJP's divisive social engineering, I think we tend to focus only on Hindu-Muslim conflict, which BJP and polarization, which BJP certainly exploits. But I think UP is as much about caste. And somewhere BJP seems to have mastered the caste equations to its advantage by dividing, not by uniting Hindus, but actually by dividing them. So there is the Hindu-Muslim division on the one hand, and then there are divisions between castes and within castes. That is to say, divisions within the OBCs and divisions within the Dalits. That is, so, I mean, BJP, if you will, is a master of division. And that is what accounts for its success in UP.
So
And
now,
indeed elsewhere.
yeah. So now that we are looking at the elections, and you've sort of explained the rise of the BJP, also to do with the caste division and also with the Ram Janambhoomi movement, which was also responsible for the decline of the Congress. But if we look at the counter today,
Yeah.
do you see an effective counter coming up to the BJP? I mean, you know that the BJP is right on top. It is fairly stable. It seems to have knitted a sort of a support system, like you just mentioned, through all the castes and community, not communities, but definitely castes. So now there is a counter, and you find that the Samajwadi Party is again trying to revive and coming through that and stitching up caste alliances and not wanting to be seen just as a Yadav party or a Yadav Muslim party, as Mulayam Singh was often accused of representing solely. Is this counter possible in the current environment? And is this counter going along the right lines, as it were?
Well, I think against the background of BJP's spectacular defeat in Bengal, and before that in the Delhi elections, BJP is not invincible anywhere. And I would say it's not invincible even in UP, although it is much stronger in UP than it was in Bengal, or for that matter, in Delhi. And yet, I think if we look at the history of UP in the last 40 years, after the decline of the Congress in the late 80s, early 90s, it's been a history of political change. No political party has really been able to rule UP for very long. There has been a great deal of political change, and it's possible that that could happen in 2022. But it can happen, to answer your second question, if the opposition parties, led by the Samajwadi Party, really hold the BJP government to account, which means they really have to focus and call to account the non-performance of the BJP government in the last 5 years. After all, BJP had not just an absolute majority, but BJP had almost about 312 seats out of 403 assembly seats. Now, with this kind of huge majority and a very weak opposition, BJP could really have taken forward the plan, taken UP forward with development. But if we really look at UP today, and if we look back at the last 5 years, you look at the manufacturing sector, it's in the negative. Unemployment has gone up from 2018 onwards. Social sector development has gone down. So on indices of development, there is definitely, there is no improvement. But not just that, we have to also take into account the COVID mismanagement. And I think it is something so recent. They're making a big effort through this massive media blitzkrieg to mislead people into thinking that actually BJP, the UP government did well. In fact, I would say UP government's performance in COVID management was perhaps among the worst, if not the worst. I don't think people will easily forget the sight, the most unfortunate and tragic sight of dead bodies floating on the Ganga. Or, for example, the most recent, this mysterious fever, which seems to have taken hold in certain parts of the state. And even now, it's clear that there's no improvement in the hospital infrastructure, because most families with their little children are literally begging for help to get inside the hospital. So I think this is the record. Even if the government has done everything to unrecord its non-performance, I think it is incumbent on the opposition parties to really focus on the non-performance of the government.
But the argument that you hear from within UP and even in Delhi is that the COVID impact, which seemed really terrible, and Bhaskar, the newspaper, has documented it, and then it was raided, etc., and everybody is connected both. But the point is that it has been blunted by the Mandir issue, by religiosity, by Hindu Rashtra, and the people are not reacting to a health issue. For them, COVID has become a health issue, just like cholera, gastroenteritis, encephalitis, this mysterious fever, the absence of healthcare in the districts. And this is forever. This is going on from decades. And just the absence of healthcare and doctors and medicines. And because people are living with death related to health on a daily basis, for them, God has become more important, and so also the play out now. There will be more of God and less of concern about health and the absence of healthcare.
No, you're absolutely right. This is exactly what the BJP is doing, and they will continue to divert attention from the real issues. But then it is really for opposition parties to bring attention by focusing on, by bringing all these facts about health and so on, and about COVID mismanagement, about the number of deaths, for example, the number of deaths in UP, the oxygen shortage, and the absolutely appalling state of hospitals and the absence of hospitals in smaller towns. What one hears is that even Lucknow, which is the capital and which is one of the biggest cities in UP and of course in the country, even there, it was so difficult for people to get into a hospital. What about, if you travel sort of 50 miles to Barabanki or Unnao and Gonda and so on, and then on towards further into eastern UP, there is virtually no healthcare system. Now, and this when we compare UP with other states, after all, I mean, we just look at look at the social development indicators of UP. They're really pathetic. They're absolutely pathetic. And I mean, and if opposition parties cannot now, after this COVID tragedy, if they can't really, you know,
Focus on this, yeah.
highlight the complete and total non-performance and failures of the government. And in addition to that, I think there is the whole issue of inflation. There is the issue of joblessness. I mean, the joblessness in UP is huge. And let us not forget that UP has a very large informal economy. And the informal economy has been very badly hit, first by demonetization 5 years ago, and now by COVID. And where are the jobs? Is there any, I mean, can the UP government give any evidence of job creation? In fact, the Center for Monitoring the Indian Economy, their data shows that actually unemployment has risen very significantly in UP. According to one of their latest estimates, perhaps 100 out of 1,000 people, which means 10% of people, 10% of people are unemployed or significantly unemployed. Now, unemployment is a very, very big issue, and this must be focused on. But unfortunately, I think the opposition parties are also doing their own caste calculations and their own caste engineering to counter BJP. I think the counter narrative has to be a counter narrative focused on the
issues that concern people.
Yeah, the necessity of social development. Yeah.
So then you have, of course, in Western UP, a slight change in this sense. You have the farmers, and you've had huge Mahapanchayats, and you've had rallies in the place where it all started, which is Muzaffarnagar. You've had, you've also seen a revival of the Rashtriya Lok Dal riding on the back and alongside the farmers. Both are working very, very closely together. So this is going to impact on a lot of seats, but will not have much of an impact in central and eastern UP, or at least it doesn't seem to be having the kind of impact that the farmers would like, right?
Well, I think you're right. Number one, the impact of the farmers' movement is significant. Although you are right that its impact is concentrated in Western UP, but even that will make a big difference. After all, Western UP accounts for a very large number of seats. And were the BJP to be seriously challenged in Western UP, it will, I have a feeling it will have some effect on Central and Eastern UP as well. And I think the point is not that there isn't a farmers' movement in Central and Eastern UP, which obviously there isn't in the way in which it exists in Western UP, but I think the overall climate that the political climate, so to speak, that the farmers' movement has created, I think that will have should have a very positive impact on the fortunes of the opposition parties.
Yeah. So the other problem, I mean, apart from the fact that there's not a concerted campaign on issues, at least not very visibly so where the opposition is concerned, is the factionalism, this whole thing of too many parties, too many cooks, all of them fighting each other. Now, Samajwadi doesn't want to go along with the Congress, though some people in UP say that it is better that way because they have a different vote banks. I don't know if that is so. The Bahujan Samaj Party is not obviously part of this whole alliance. The Rashtriya Lok Dal and the Samajwadi have come together, but they are the only two major parties, or if you call them major, who have come together. So now, how is that all going to impact? It's sort of a very chaotic kind of other side. So you have the unity of the BJP, the RSS, and all the organizations that go with them. And on the other side, you have a whole fractious opposition.
Well, I mean, the fragmentation of the opposition is certainly something to be concerned about. But on the other hand, if we compare UP with Bengal, for example, in Bengal, there was the TMC, the BJP, and left in Congress. So it was a three-way fight, although in the end it was basically between the TMC and the BJP. Likewise, here in UP, it is in a way a three-way fight between the BJP, the Samajwadi Party, and BSP. I don't think Congress is a very significant player, although I think you're right in hinting that the division of opposition votes will be an advantage for the BJP. And we should also not forget that there will be other smaller players like Asaduddin Owaisi's party, AIMM. Now that will divide the Muslim vote, but to what extent? But he, of course, had very insignificant impact in Bengal, and I expect it's very likely, given the high-stake election that UP is, that the Owaisi party may not really do well. So fragmentation is an issue, but then this is the reality, and there are very few. This is the reality, and somewhere in the end, it's going to be essentially, as we said in the beginning, a contest between the BJP and the Samajwadi Party. But we have to see. So far, at least, the Samajwadi Party seems to be a slow starter. They haven't really picked momentum yet. I mean, and the elections are only 5 to 6 months away. There's no evidence that they're really sort of gearing up for this big battle in the way in which one would expect. I mean, if we again compare with Bengal, most clearly the major players in Bengal had geared up for the election a good 6 to 8 months before. After all, the elections again over there were in March, April, as they are next year in UP. But we remember that in Bengal, it all started really literally about this time in 2020. So I think really.
But it's interesting that even the BJP is not showing any signs. I mean, you would have Amit Shah already there in UP. Like he was in Bengal before, but he hasn't made a visit and people are talking about it. But I want to get back to this other Muslim factor that we, considering there are two people with Muslim names who are very ironically discussing UP at the moment, we might as well take advantage of that and talk a little bit about this, because it's always been, when the Jamaat-e-Islami also set up candidates in UP in different elections in the past, none of them ever won. And the UP Muslim, regardless of whatever persecution he or she is facing today, has always rejected the extremist religious parties from within its midst, and has always preferred to vote for the secular, larger democratic parties. It's been like it's a history. So today, this kind of what you've already said, that you don't think that Owaisi is going to make much of a mark in that, but it's also to do with the fact that people, the Muslims there would, or the minorities would reject his kind of politics, or is it more to do with the fact that it's a high voltage election, like you mentioned, and that is why they'd rather go with the bigger parties? And in a normal situation as of today, people would look at Owaisi with different eyes, as they would not have, say, 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever.
In the last 5 or 6 decades, several Muslim parties have emerged in UP, starting with the famous Majlis-e-Mushawarat way back in the 60s, led by Dr. E.J. Faridi. Now, even that party didn't really take off. So, and then since then, of course, there have been, as you just said, there have been several Muslim parties have come up, but none of them have fared well, which I think speaks volumes about the maturity of the voter in UP, not just the Muslim voter, but the voter in general, but the Muslim voter in particular. And I think more than ever before, the Muslim voters are aware of the dangers that the dangers that a re-election of the BJP in 2022 means, not just for UP, but perhaps even for the country. So mindful of that possibility, they're going to vote with a great deal of thinking, and they will not want to, what we call within quote, waste their vote. And also, I think the Muslims in UP have had a reasonably good experience with the Samajwadi Party. And therefore, there is every reason to think that they will trust the Samajwadi Party. I think for Muslims, the choice really will be between the Samajwadi Party and the Congress. I doubt if the BSP can really break into the Muslim vote in a majorly way. But I think the Samajwadi Party stands a good chance. I really don't expect the smaller parties. I mean, most of the smaller parties will suffer the same fate that Abbas Siddique's party suffered in Bengal. I really don't think, because this is far too an election for people to really, try out other parties.
So I'm going to end with this, and we are going to get you back here closer to the elections, I hope. And thanks a lot, Zoya. That was really informative, and we just wanted to get a whole picture.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Zoya Hassan has painted a picture of Uttar Pradesh just before it goes into the elections, or rather into the campaign for elections, because the campaign hasn't really begun in that state. The BJP is really strong. It is very much on top. But there is some opposition now that you can sense from the Samajwadi Party and its hookup with the other smaller parties. The Congress remains as messy as before. It doesn't have an organization, and the forays of Priyanka Gandhi into UP have not really yielded any results for that party. The Bahujan Samaj Party is sort of, except for a few noises by its chief, Mayawati, there is not much to show on the ground, and there is no activity where that party, which was once in government in UP, is concerned. So now let's see, these are all the issues that the opposition has to get together. These are all the issues that they have to actually propagate and campaign on, to form and to present a counter narrative to the very strong BJP campaign. So let's see you closer to the elections, where we will discuss UP again at great length. Bye-bye.